So we're continuing our reading, a conversation between Lord Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. Muni was a little bit wild. All right, everyone please repeat. Rupam.
Rupam.
Form.
Bhagavata.
Personality of God.
The personality of God.
Yet.
As it is.
Touch.
That. Mana.
With the mind.
Kantam.
As it desires. Suja. Abaham. Vanishing all disparity. Apashyan. Without seeing. Sahasha. All of a sudden. Dashte. Kaka. Vaikal. Being perturbed. Urmana. Having lost the desirable. Eva. As it were. Translation and purport as well. The transcendental form of the Lord, as it is, satisfies the mind's desire, and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing that form, I suddenly got up, being perturbed, as is usual when one loses that which is desirable. That the Lord is not formless is experienced by Narada Muni, but his form is completely different from all forms of our material existence. For the whole duration of our life, we go see different forms in the material world, but none of them is just apt to satisfy the mind, nor can any one of them banish all perturbance of the mind. These are the special features of the transcendental form of the Lord. And one who has once seen that form is not satisfied with anything else. No one in the material world can any longer satisfy the seer. That the Lord is formless or impersonal means that he has nothing like a material form, and is not like any material personality. So I'll stop here just for a moment and recall the conversation which I had yesterday with Dr. Bhagavatam Maharaj. We were discussing Krishna lila, but we were discussing Krishna lila in the form of Krishna lila drama, which is shown here in India, all over India, but particularly here in Vrndavana. It is shown by dance troupes. And generally these dance troupes are all young children. Most all the time, mostly they're young boys. And they are trained in a classical sort of Braj drama. And they perform in Krishna lila. And especially in the Julan Yatra, in July, there are many Krishna lila performances. And they're popularly attended. So one of the devotees was asking, I got an invitation to an ashram where scholars meet here in Vrndavana. I said that ashram is a very famous ashram. Scholars from all over the world come there to do research and so forth. And this time of year, which is around the time of Holi, which is originally a Braj function to perform. It's the beginning of springtime, the end of winter, the beginning of spring. So this festival is performed then. So at this time, in this particular ashram that we were discussing, they have the Krishna Lila drama. So one of our devotees was asking, can we go there? Is it all right to go there and see the play, the drama? So then we discussed that. And actually, although it is very nice for village people, seemingly very nice, and it was also quite entertaining for sophisticated people and these things, that's primarily the defect of such drama, is that it is entertaining. And who are we to be entertained by Krishna's Rasa Lila? It is not an object for our entertainment. So I remember once when Srila Prabhupada here in Vrndavana was also asked, can we go to see Krishna Lila? And also this devotee said, when I said that it's not an object for our enjoyment, like we go to the cinema maybe, the devotee said, oh, actually they said this Leela is non-different. Seeing this Leela perform, Rasa Leela and other Leelas, different Leelas they perform, not just Rasa Leela, but they're all Radha Krishna Leela. Seeing that is non-different. So then I recalled, yes, Srila Prabhupada also said that. It is non-different. If you have first seen the Aprakata Leela, which is eternally manifested on the shores of the Jamuna here, if you have seen that one in your bhajan, actually, then if you happen to go to a drama presentation, it's non-different for you. But if all you've seen is the drama presentation, it is not non-different. And so then we discussed a little farther, then some necessity, well, there must be some proof. There must be some proof. It is non-different or not. And here is one such proof is mentioned in this verse. That when one sees the form of the Lord, he is no longer satisfied with anything else, particularly of this material world. Now after so many people gather and see the Krishna drama, and say, oh, it is not different from the Krishna Lila, if we follow them to their house, what do we find? We find a whole bunch of material activities centered around business, loan, murder, all sorts of things. Money swindling, all sorts of things are going on here in Vrndavana. About 6 murders a year take place in the streets, in broad daylight. They call this the Dodge City of the spiritual world. And who's doing all of that? They don't need to say, otherwise they might come and put their finger on it. But it is being done. And there's so many people seeing. And those from the West, they get back on the airplane, they go to smoke cigarettes, drink, do so many things. But the reality is that once having seen Krishna, as Narada Muni did, then one can never be satisfied with anything less than that. And thus Narada Muni then wandered throughout the world for the duration of his life, since he was 5 years old, until the time of his reaching adulthood and beyond. And he always wandered in a state of mind which was absorbed in what he had seen, that beautiful form of the Lord. And he was never attracted to or satisfied with when having to deal with anything in the material world. So that is definitely something that we want to look for in transcendence and in persons who are either claiming such transcendence or are being said by others, oh, this person has got very high Krishna consciousness. There must be manifest a certain quality of disinterest in the material world and the goings on in this material world, which are mainly centered around Vani. Vani means money. Centering around money, we find everything. All kinds of nonsense is possible with money. So those who are usually interested in nonsense, they're usually also interested in money. So, of course, money is also required in Krishna's service. But one has to be very careful about how money is being utilized, either in Krishna's service or in our service. And our service means the service of Maya. Mahaprabhu instructed 3 devotees, which I can mention to you, Narahari, Raghunandan, and Mukunda. He instructed these 3 devotees in a very special way. He told that Mukunda had been a classmate friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so to speak, throughout his Navadvip lila. But this time of instruction was in Jagannath Puri, at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So he told Mukunda, after some discussion and conversation about his son was Raghunandan. The son of Mukunda was Raghunandan. So one day Mahaprabhu said, Raghunandan, one day Mahaprabhu said, Mukunda, is Raghunandan your son or your father? Can you please clarify? That's kind of a question it is. Is he my son or is he my father? So, being a very exalted devotee of the Lord, Mukunda understood the Lord's inquiry. And in the manner of an obvious question, he said, Raghunandan is my father. That is my final decision. And then Mukunda said, via Raghunandan, all of us and our village have become enlightened in Krishna consciousness. So Mahaprabhu smiled and was very happy that he took that understanding. That due to his having been the cause of so much Krishna consciousness for so many, he was not only his father, he was the father of the whole village. Because who enlivens us in Krishna consciousness, or who brings us to Krishna consciousness, even if they're younger than we are, they must be considered as our superior. And one may take that thinking all the way to think of them as my father, and as my eternal father also. So then Mahaprabhu was very pleased with Mukunda, and he told him, you earn your spiritual wealth and your material wealth. He told him to earn money and to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Then he turned to Raghunandan, his material son and Mukunda's spiritual father, and he told Raghunandan, he is always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and worshiping the deity. So he must always worship the deity. So Mahaprabhu instructed him to worship the deity. And then he addressed Narahari. And there was so much conversation in between. Mahaprabhu was speaking the glories of these devotees. And he's instructing them for our benefit also. And then for Narahari, he told, you always remain with the devotees. You remain with the devotees. And in the purports, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, Srila Gaurava, they say, oh, this means preaching. The devotees, where there are the devotees, there's Harikatha. And that is going around in the circle of devotees and then it's spreading to outside. That is preaching. So in this way, Mahaprabhu instructed these 3 devotees, and in instructing them, instructed all of us. These are 3 very important things. Preaching, worshiping the deity, cultivation of our own spiritual life, and the collection of money. Fundraising for the mission. These things are all required. And at different times in our Krishna consciousness movement, over the years, historically you will see, the emphasis was placed on one above the other at different times. I remember when deity worship was the most important thing in Srila Prabhupada's movement. The head of all deity worship was Mother Shalavati at Los Angeles. Maybe that's before even some, or before many of you were even born. And these books were being printed. In particular, I remember the Krishna book. And I went out to Salt Lake City, where there was an extension temple of Los Angeles. We had Krishna books filled up with prasadam. We had to take prasadam in the hallway in the office. And I can remember the devotees standing around going, what are we supposed to do with all these books? Only 4 devotees in the temple. This was 1970. What could we possibly do with these books? The main thing was worshiping the deity and going on sankirtana, chanting on the streets. And it was inconceivable how we were going to take that big book, and not only that, 3 of them, and go out and sell them for $5 each or something. That was inconceivable, and there was also no importance placed on it. And Srila Prabhupada was asked what to do with them. He said, just stock them, I'll tell you later. Then by 1971 and 72, then that took the most important thing. And pujaris were called to the streets for another kind of service to the deity. And in that time, then some people were saying, oh, deity worship, that's not so important. Come on sankirtana, come distribute books. And then, like this, if you actually study the ontology of the moon, or not the ontology, but the history of the moon, you'll see emphasis being placed in different times and different things. But actually, Mahaprabhu is saying all 3 things are necessary for a healthy mission in a healthy society of devotees. We must all worship the deity, and we should go for preaching, and we should cultivate our Krishna consciousness, not neglect our own spiritual life for the sake of preaching. Sometimes that happens. A day or 2 may pass where the preacher can't chant his rounds, read the scripture, or attend the class. Right now, there's so many devotees, therefore there's so many arrangements, so somebody is somewhere else arranging. But if we totally neglect all these things in the name of preaching, then we'll have some difficulties. That would be very, very difficult. We neglect our own spiritual life. How can a drowning man save a drowning man? One must first save himself. So that's your own culture and cultivation of Krishna consciousness. And I started on this point from mentioning money is usually rejected. Mahaprabhu rejects it, not needing money. Yeah. But here Mahaprabhu is recommending to his devotees, yes, you engage yourself in wealth. And then that wealth, that is meant for helping in arranging the service of the deities and the maintenance of the devotees and the propagation of the preaching. So these 3 things were mentioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the symptom of one who has got some transcendental standing is that he's not interested in money for himself. Does not keep a separate bank balance for himself. But naturally a householder must do that. 99.9% of householders must keep some money. We recommend that. Please, keep some money. Keep enough money. Because if you don't, you become a burden on the temple. You become a burden on the sannyasi, or a burden on your group. Please keep enough money. But don't forget where the center of life is. It's not your own kitchen. But the center of life in a Vedic society is the temple, and the deity in the temple, and the devotees and so forth. So, there are symptoms of transcendence. And one who has actually come in touch with Krishna, which is the highest entity, and one who has come in touch with Krishna's service, the highest activity, and Krishna's name, the highest name, and Mahaprasad, the highest type of food, and all these things in relation to Krishna, one who has come in touch with them in a substantial way, will not give them up, and will not be interested or attracted to things of a similar type, names, forms, qualities, pastimes, activities, and so forth, and so on. So there are characteristics, there are symptoms. And we are advised from the very beginning about what is important. So in that particular conversation, Mahaprabhu told about these things. To 3 devotees, he told 4 things. Later in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we find that there are a list of 64 items for practicing Krishna consciousness, sadhana bhakti and raganuga bhakti. See, they're all in the list of sadhana and raganuga bhakti. Devotional service under rule, devotional service ruled by love. 2 types of devotional service. So a beginning is a beginning, and it's devotion by rule. And the end is the end. The rule is the thumb of, what do they call it? The rule of the thumb is love. not anything else. If one tries to go from A to Z without progressing through all the stages or progressing properly, then one will not really arrive at the goal. One will arrive at something short of the goal, which may look like it. It's like in Madras. You have to be very careful about your money in Madras in South India, because there is a mass mafia of counterfeit money, both American, all kinds of country counterfeit, and Indian rupees. So in Madras, you have to be very careful about getting change somewhere, accepting large notes, 500 rupees. It's a notorious place for the counterfeit. What does it mean, counterfeit? To the common observer, the counterfeit looks as good as the real thing. But the experts, they can tell. But I can't tell. I've seen some bad counterfeit that you can tell. For example, if a Mayavadi comes to our ashram, he's carrying an ekdanda, he has Mayavadi Vaiṣṇava dress, bright red color. He's got vibhuti in 3 lines over his head, and he's coming in Aham Brahmasmi, I am God. That's a Mayavadi. But that's not the only way to tell Mayavadi. Another example is a sahajiya. What's a sahajiya? Well, there's one type of sahajiya which we can very easily, sahajiya means imitator. There's one type which you can see very quick. They're called shaki babies. I call them shaki babies. They dress in saris, they wear a nose ring, they wear perfume, they braid their hair. I think they pluck their whiskers. But as soon as you see one, you can get out. This is a sahajiya. There are many types of sahajiyas. And some of them chant 64 rounds a day, do all the codices, observe all festivals, sleep no more than 6 hours, study the Bhagavatam, no Sanskrit, no Bengali. We call them Paramahansa Sahajiyas. Means that they are such a high grade of Sahajiya, what will we do with them? They are very difficult to tackle. And Vrndavana always hosts a few like that also. Very high. They're not fools. They're highly learned, highly educated. But in them, particularly Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura found significant defect. For example, there is one group, they chant a mantra. Nittai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Bhaja Nittai Gaur Radhe Shyam. Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. Right? Now, someone say that's not bona fide, but if you look in Bhaktivinoda Thakura songbooks and others, you'll see Viva Varisesha, Anurupa the song, Vrndavana, Madhusudana, poetic names of Krishna. So they're singing Bhaja Nittai Gaur, and they're saying Radhe Shyam, they're saying Bhaja Nittai Gaur, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. What is the problem? What is the problem? It's a beautiful song, beautiful singers. They chant 64 rounds daily. Why? Why 64 rounds? Do anybody know why somebody chants 64 rounds? Because Mahaprabhu told, chant 64 rounds daily. That is the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. About the chanting. Haridas Thakur, 120 rounds a day. And that was the standard of japa until the advent of Srila Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Thakur and the preaching movement. And then he said, we should always remember, if we don't chant 64 rounds a day, we are fallen souls. And at the time of initiation, he recommended the minimum practitioner preacher, because we were doing both things, practice and preaching. We have chant 16 rounds minimum. When Srila Prabhupada came to America, in New York, and the first group of devotees gathered round, and they got the first place, and finding 26th Avenue, and the first editions and all of that, and they asked, Swami B.G, how much chanting you should do daily? He told 64 rounds. So after about a week, Brahmananda and others came back and said, can't do that. And understandably so, if you live in New York, and many were working jobs, 8-hour-a-day jobs, commute to, from, the temple, then Srila Prabhupada said, all right, then chant 32. But his Guru Maharaj already said 16. When he was initiated, that was the standard. Nonetheless, Mahaprabhu had told 64. So, and they weren't really a preaching mission then. There was just the temple and Swami B.G and a few classes and lots of nice things God, and go over in the afternoon to his house, so 64 rounds. Then that also could not be cheap. So then came, all right, 16 rounds. That became the standard. And it was the standard before, but 64 rounds. So these other people that we're talking about, not in a derogatory way, but just for our own understanding, they also chant 64 rounds. I know them, I know some of them. I've been to programs with them and so forth. And they follow very strictly regular principles and all these things. But in their thinking, they think Nittai Gur Radhe Sham. They think that Nityananda is Srimati Radharani. And in the realm of Ruchi, Rasa, tasting the melodies of Gaur Lila and Krishna Lila, this makes the whole thing unpalatable and undesirable. And like that. So, not just from an external point of view can we try to understand what is actually transcendental. I'm sure everybody here has heard something about that. There have been books published on it, magazine articles written on it, so on and so forth, about the fall or the non-fall of the jiva soul. So, one section of devotees says that the soul, jiva soul, it falls from Vaikuntha and comes to this material world. Or it falls from Goloka Vrndavana. In any case, Goloka Vrndavana is also Vaikuntha in the spiritual world. There are planes of that. Dwarka, Ayodhya, that's also Vaikuntha. But technically, Goloka is superior to Vaikuntha. But it's all considered Vaikuntha in one sense. It's all transcendental. So one group of devotees says that the soul falls from Krishna, Loka, and Goloka. That means, when given some explanation, that means that you were with Krishna. And you were with Krishna, or you were with Lord Narayan, and you were sitting his lotus face, you were possibly serving his lotus feet, you were a Vishnu Duda, a gopi, a cowherd boy, maybe you were a cow, or you were a tree. You had Siddha Swarup, you had an eternal, blissful form made of Satchit Ananda. And one day, when Krishna was playing his lila, you began to think, why I am not enjoying him this way? I would also like to be kissed by the gopis, or I would also like to suckle the breast of Mother Yasoda. You thought like that, and then, because you thought like that, you were covered over, you were thrown in the trash. It's like in a Macintosh computer. You were clicked, drugged, and then you were spit out into the world. Actually, that's true. And why I became envious? Because you're a fool. That is the answer. I would give it. So, then there's another class of devotees, and they don't say like that at all. In a parallel way, they say you never saw Krishna, actually, face to face. Although because you come from him, you saw him. It's a little on the inconceivable side, but you never saw him. You were not in lila. You do not have your citizenry. You were not in lila. You come from the marginal plane called Tatastha Shakti. And this Tatastha Shakti is sometimes called the Brahmajyoti also. What we know as Brahmajyoti, just by reading, that Brahmajyoti belongs in the Tatastha realm. It is between the material and the spiritual energies. So this jiva, it comes from that marginal plane. And it has capacity and ability to choose between these two worlds. One is the external world, the Maya world, and the other is the internal Swarup Shakti world. And he has got capacity to choose between these two. And thus he sometimes chooses that which is not most desirable, which is the material world, and that living entity comes in this side, and he's called Nityabandha, eternally conditioned. And some choose to the other side, they are called Nityasiddha, eternally liberated. So, what I'm going to mention is how if we say we fall from Vaikuntha or Gaurava, that's Mayavadi philosophy. And in the beginning, it was, for example, Om. There are a lot of young people there. I think there's some Krishna youth there, some of them, devotees from LA, and they're where they left. So if they wear an Om on their shirt, right, an Om pendant, they'll be criticized. Because Om is synonymous with Mayavadis in the general understanding of devotees. Om is synonymous with Mayavadis. But actually the reality of Om is, Om means Radha Krishna. The meaning of Om is Radha Krishna. It's not synonymous with Mayavadi. Nothing is synonymous with Mayavadi. That is a concocted philosophy. But because they're using that emblem always, just like here, we make yagya, we make clay pots, and we paint a swastika. Nice red swastika on the pot. Everybody says, oh, nice swastika. When the devotees in Germany make a fire sacrifice, they will not paint a swastika on a clay pot. Because the swastika there stands for the Third Reich. It stands for Hitler. It stands for genocide. It stands for extermination of human life. But does it really? No. It's actually a very auspicious symbol. But it was misused by a group of people. It became their emblem. Therefore, the world has rejected this swastika. Except in India, they're using swastika. Because they know its origin. So similarly, the world has rejected so many devotees. Vaishnavas have rejected Om. Because the Mayavadis are always Om. They're giving Om. And the devotees say, oh, but actually Om belongs to the Vaishnavas, not to the Mayavadis. So similarly, when Srila Sridhar Maharaj told, yes, this jiva soul, he falls from the Brahma Jyoti, then the other section, you know what they said? They said, it's a Maya. Because Brahma Jyoti has the same connotation as Om. A Brahma Jyoti, Jyoti, light. Every time you hear somebody preaching about light or describing light, you know, Maya. And you're usually right. But I can show you one article, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, describing the Brahma Jyoti. And if we stop 3/4 of the way through the article, you'll join Brahma Jyoti. It is so nice, his description. This Krishna's bodily effulgence. It is not a nasty thing. It is Krishna's effulgence. And he describes it in the most appreciable way. But then he goes on to the realm of devotion within that. But at a certain point, you think, what is this? If I show you that paragraph, is that Mayavadi? You'll say Mayavadi. So as soon as they heard Brahma Jyoti, they told Mayavadi. Big aparat. Big Vaishnava aparat was created. What happens when we create Vaishnava aparat? Even small Vaishnava aparat. The so-called fault, especially if it's a false fault that we find, and especially if we find a false fault in a very high soul, that's like your worst case scenario. The fault that you find descends to you. The fault, it may not even exist. If you fault your godbrothers also for doing something, right, you'll find yourself with the same hang-up, with the same fault in the future. So Sridhar Maharaj used to say, this is the secret of Vaishnavism. That if we find the faults of others, the fault finds us, then we associate with that fault. It will actually come to us. It's looking for some place to go. It will come to us. And especially if that devotee is very exalted, very dear to Krishna. If he is a devotee of a very high capacity. High capacity means if he is a dispenser or a giver of mercy. If he is a giver of divine love. He has got capacity to put you in connection with the highest and sweetest realm of truth. And we hurl our insanity against him, then it will simply descend upon him. So, then more and more, these persons started to make a case that the living entity falls from Vaikuntha. And they're absolutely adamant about it. And they have got many, many references for that. And also things drawn from Srila Prabhupada's conversations and his preaching and so many things. And they're forcing that. So then you naturally ask, well, how is it Mayavadi? Because the Mayavadis say this. They say that everything with form is fallible. This material world is fallible. Fallible means defective. Defect means envy, greed, lust, anger can enter there. That's the meaning of the fallible world. When you say, we fell from the spiritual world because of anger, because of envy, that's a material quality found in the Mahatattva. They'll say, yes, probably you did. Because your Vaikuntha Golok, which is a place of your so-called transcendental form, is actually fallible, and you yourself have proven it to me now. That's what they'll say. You fall from there, it is fallible. We say, it is transcendental form, Satchidananda, Vigraha, etc. And once having gone there, one can never go anywhere else, even for a moment. One cannot go to any other place. Never leave that. It is infallible. Then the Mayavadi will have to find another way. But if you say, yeah, after we were there, you know how long we were there? We were there for infinity. And in that infinity, we became envious. Then he'll say, yes, it's not infinity, it's a fallible place. Therefore, it's just another place of the material, not spiritual. And the Mayavadis, they will say, oh, Brahma, go to Brahma, Brahmajyoti. Well, we will say, no, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you go there, definitely you come back. That is in Bhagavad Gita. One who goes to the Brahman again falls down. From Brahman you can fall down. Because that is not absolutely infallible because of the nature of the soul. It's like being in an airplane. It can't stay there forever. Only so long in the air, and then you have to come down. So the living entities in the Brahman, they cannot stay there forever. They must come out. They must come down. It's like the womb. The Brahman is like the womb for the jivas. There is a cause of the jiva's existence. That is to serve Krishna and his devotees, his eternal associates. And the womb of that necessity is the Brahmajyoti. They're all generated from there. And they must come out. Sukadeva Goswami, he managed 16 years in the womb. And any mother can tell you that's exceptional. Something like I'm just 6 months, 9 months away. Then there's worry. You begin to worry after that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained 12 months. 12 months. That is very exceptional. Let's speak of 16 years. So from the womb we must come out. So from the Brahmajyoti, all the living entities must come out. So that is actually, we say that is a Mayavadi, because it suggests the fallibility of the spiritual world. It suggests, to say that we came from there is a fallible place. And these persons have arisen to this, like forged in steel understanding. How? By scriptural reference? Through their bhajan and realization? No. They reached this forged in steel understanding that we fell from the spiritual world due to offense, aparad. If one makes aparad, then anarthas come. And one of the anarthas that comes to us, which is explained in this Madhurya Kadambini, that inability to understand siddhanta is an anartha. And anarthas actually are the results of aparad, either in this life or past lives. If we can't clear an anartha, a misgiving, it's to do with offenses. And the only way to clear ourselves of offenses is the lotus feet of the devotees. The dust of the lotus feet of the devotees. Krishna has actually got secondary importance. because of our stage. And even at that, where is Krishna without his devotees? He's never anywhere without his devotees. So one could say Krishna is nowhere without his devotees. But he's always with his devotees. So, because of that great offense, and referring to hurling insult against such a highly posted agent of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as our Sri Maharaj, by calling him a Mayavadi, these persons have actually had to adopt the Mayavadi point of view in relation to Krishna Bhajan. And so anyway, I promised someone I would mention that in class. And this is another point in support of that. If you saw Krishna once in this material world, it says that nothing else, no other form, no other name, no other anything, nothing will be of interest or attraction to you. So what to speak of if you just spent 20 million trillion years with Krishna in Goloka Vrndavana, and then one fine sunny day you became Hindu? That was not possible. Once having seen the face of Krishna, really, how one can even live in this world, that would be a question. That would be difficult even to remain alive here and just continue to live in a body. That would be very, very difficult. One time, someone referred to Srila Prabhupada saying, when I chant Swami B.G, I see a blue light. Krishna's blue. Blue light coming. Srila Prabhupada's reply was, you keep chanting, it will go away. And I also experienced that blue light when I first began chanting. And then I discovered that it was actually just the sun coming through the skylight in the roof. At 3 in the afternoon, it would shine on the altar. And we had a picture of the deities, and it would just go blue. I was the only one in the temple room then, because I was the cook. I cooked the 4 o'clock offering, take it in, I make the offering, and hang up the curtain, I chant rounds, and all of a sudden the picture of Krishna would go blue. And I thought I was somebody very, very special. So while looking up, I noticed that it's the sun. So once I heard Sridhar Maharaj say that in response to someone is saying, oh, when I'm closing my eyes or I'm chanting, I'm giving Krishna and the cows. The cows are coming, I'm singing Krishna. So Sridhar Maharaj said, they may be singing Krishna, but that's not the Krishna that we are after. Simply by closing the eyes, Krishna comes with his cows. Not so cheap. So maybe they're seeing Krishna, but don't be fooled by that Krishna. The Krishna offers himself to you cheaply, don't think. It's fleeting. It's not real. It's not really giving himself. In other words, he's saying, we do not find this mood in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's so cheaply he's getting Krishna darshan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did get Krishna darshan, no doubt. Puri lilas, he would go to some place, some plane beyond this world, and he would see Krishna. He could see Radha and Krishna. But what the devotees saw on this side, they saw that in that state of consciousness where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to see Krishna, Radha Krishna, his arms came inside his body, just like a turtle. His head went inside his body, and his legs went inside his body. Or sometime they saw, did he become 13 feet long, and every joint was separated by 6 inches. You can imagine, and it is described there, the sight was unbearable to the human eye. The devotees, his own personal sin, they couldn't bear what they saw. They couldn't bear to see that. And wailing in a piteous kirtan, they would chant the holy names of Krishna. And after a long time, in that state, that name would reach to where Mahaprabhu was, and hearing the name of Krishna, he would come back. And when coming back to his consciousness, oh, his body would assume its normal, beautiful, elegant shape. And the devotees, who were in an ocean of tears and anxiety and everything, they would be so happy. Mahaprabhu said, but then said, why did you brought me here? Why did you call me back to this place? I was seeing Krishna, I was there, I was picking flowers for the gopis. They had me picking flowers to serve Krishna. Why did you brought me back here with that sound? That noise, they call it. So Sridhar Maharaj says two things at this point. He says, that noise. Muhammad, those are all Nitya Siddha perfected devotees, eternal associates in the lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who were making that sound. And Mahaprabhu referred to it as a sound, which drew him back to the material world. What was the quality of their chanting? And not just their regular bhajan at that time, seeing Mahaprabhu in that state, what they felt. Maharaj Goswami doesn't say. He said they felt pain, they felt grief. But you try to imagine what type of pain they felt seeing that. Even hearing about it is, can't understand how Mahaprabhu's body became like that. But they're seeing that, what they felt. And their kirtan is coming with this feeling. Such a high quality. And he told this is some sound. So then Sridhar said, so what we should think of our own chanting. We should very humbly approach the holy name. What is the quality of my chanting? What great sound I'm able to make towards the holy name. Quality. Huh? We should think very humbly about our own chanting. He said, but then, on the other side, that holy name of Krishna, when chanted purely, where did it go? It went right there, to that place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being engaged as a manjari, as a servant of the gopis in the service of Radha. So two instructions come to us via that pastime. One is, don't consider your chanting so high, you're so great. This will go against your actual development, the culture of the holy name. But remember, the holy name will take you via the name of Krishna. You will go to the highest possible stage of perfection conceivable in eternity. The name will go to the ultimate goal of life. And this is particularly an instruction to the Smarnam Bhaktas, who minimize the importance of Kirtanam and give more importance to mentally remembering the pastimes of Krishna, and in a way in which you see yourself in those pastimes. That methodology is not been appreciated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Param Guru. And he, as well as the host of acharyas of our sampradaya, they give emphasis on kirtan. By the holy name of Krishna, everything will come to us in its proper proportion at the proper time. Via the name, it is all coming. We're thinking that we're chanting Hare Krishna, therefore we're collecting. This is the level of appreciation that we have at present for the name all over the world. We're chanting kirtan, and we're building big buildings. One devotee, he told, I'm waking up every morning and chanting 16 rounds before Mangalarti and strictly following the morning program. Therefore, I'm successful at building this Bangalore $10 million project. That's his estimation of the arrangement of the name. And it's true, the name is arranging everything. But if someone says, oh, you know, one day when I was wandering on the bank of the Ganges, I met a group of devotees, I saw some friendly faces. I went there. They were all sitting around a senior Vaishnava. They asked me, please sit down here and hear something. So I sat down. I began to hear some Krishna Katha. And there I found that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had again manifested in the heart of the Vaishnava. They'll say, how's that possible? They'll say, how's that possible? They believe the holy name has taken me there. The holy name is guiding me. And the holy name took me to this association. And there I found the treasure of my life. No. The holy name gives bricks, bags of cement, big bank boxes. And if you say that, they'll go, right on, boo. Too big when you go out the door at 8:30. Too big. And someone comes back with $1,500 from the collect. Krishna's mercy. Someone comes back with Sri Guru's grace or golden volcano and says, hey, somebody gave me this book. Nonsense. That's not Krishna's grace. It's actually true. They judge the mercy of Krishna to the degree that it's cashable at the bank. Beware about the bank. Beware about the money. Sri Maharaj, he told, don't try to measure Krishna's mercy just in that way. Because the money is sometimes the result of Vaishnava Philosophy. The money comes to consume us and occupy us in this world. So many bags of cement, we have no time for inquiry. We have no time for sadhu sangha. We have no time to chant our rounds. We have no time to chant even what little we chant in property. No time. We sound like the materialists. No time, no time, no time, no time. That's what they say. Sir, read this book. No time. Please chant Hare Krishna. No time. Can't. One says chant, chant, chant. Can't. So Sridhar Maharaj used to say, don't fall prey to this idea. So busy in Krishna's service, I have no time for Krishna consciousness. Just like there are what we call alcoholics, there are what we call workaholics, and there's what I call servaholics. An alcoholic is someone who's an incessant drinker. A workaholic is someone who's an incessant worker. Incessant. And a servaholic, thusly, must be someone who's incessantly serving. This Prabhu is a servaholic. This is a misused nomenclature, phrase. Alcoholic doesn't mean just an incessant drinker. It means one who hides the reality of his life behind incessant drinking. He cannot face a reality. It may be at home, his job, his social status, the color of his skin, whether male or female or in between, or whatever it may be. He can't adjust the reality of what he is and what he has to deal with, so behind the drinking, it is forgotten. And we think if someone is a workaholic, that's also good. This person's a workaholic. If we get them on the farm, that's good. But this word, workaholic, comes from the psychiatric department. It means a person who hides the reality of his life behind work, 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 work. He can't deal with the wife and kids at home, so he gets a second job. He can't deal with realities of society, so he just does work on the computer forever. He can't deal with the world. He just finds himself inside the screen, inside his hard disk. They're called workaholics. It's a disease. And there is a servaholic. It does not mean just someone who's serving. It means someone is keeping themselves busy in that realm, what is called devotional service, to the extent that they don't want to address reality. They don't want to face what is truth. They don't want to make progress. Very, very good. Prabhu, I'm very busy. I'm serving the world. I'm so busy. I just don't have time. I don't have time to read any other books. I don't have time. I'm too busy serving. So hopefully there are not so many servaholics. The devotees fully engaged in service, yes, that is good.